Welcome, welcome. I'm really, really excited for this Connecting the Dots podcast, the Longevity Playbook, because we're going to start talking about longevity, regenerative health, health span, like all of those buzzwords and what that looks like in two key and very different markets in the world. So I'm happy to welcome my guests, Susan Turner coming in from Dubai and Christian Kruse coming in from Munich, right? Germany?
Correct.
Yes. Okay, so let's get started with who the heck are you? Susan, can you connect the dots for me from where you started to what brought you into the longevity regenerative health world today?
So I am a fitness person through and through. So started on the distribution side, working for techno gyms, selling fitness equipment, sort of a full cycle there of then moving on to more gym operations. So running gyms, running fitness studios, running my own personal training business, right through to probably one of those sliding doors moments where I met a Saudi princess who said, "Hey, there's no gyms for women in Saudi Arabia. Shall we do this?" So we did. We brought in fitness accessible for women as a fitness center in its own right, rather than fitness centers for women had to be attached to a hospital. So they were classed as rehabilitation spaces rather than gyms. So we set up 8 of those at what was that time around 2012, affordable fitness. So built that chain up, exited in 2018, and then decided that I wasn't quite done with the industry. So I decided it would be fun to bring Pure Gym as a franchise to the Middle East. So that was a journey for me from 2019 to 2025. 23 gyms later. So I finished with those last year with Pure Gym. And I thought, come on, it's time to change this up a little bit. And again, another sliding doors moment with my perimenopausal frozen shoulder. Started to come to this incredible clinic where this system of care said, let's not just look at the shoulder, let's look at everything. And before I knew it, I thought I was just going to get some physio. I was doing blood tests, I was doing movement and spine checks. I was doing VO2 tests, whole supplement program, nutrition, zinc tests, you name it. And that was me, hook, line, and sinker. And then they said, listen, we're looking for somebody to head this up and scale it. What do you think? And I thought, I'm going to have to learn very quickly, but let's do it. So here I am on a very steep but enjoyable learning curve.
And how long has that been? So you're now working with precision health clinics?
Yeah, so we're precision wellness. So we have clinics, we have centers. So all of the sort of clinical consultations we send through doctors and functional medicine doctors. In the center, we've got physios, osteopaths, dietitians, functional medicine specialists, massage therapists, supplement experts, nurses, traditional doctors as well, when we find people have got some pretty interesting situations where we're trying to manage prescribed medication with people that are wanting to potentially not do that journey anymore. It's a very careful equation in terms of weaning people off if it's even possible. So I've been here 3 months now.
Okay.
3 months.
Very fresh and very new and no regrets, like happy that you dove right in?
I go to bed in the evenings and my brain is absolutely fried because gym operations, they're very intense, but it's quite systematic and it's just sort of get in, work hard, get consistency. With this, when everyone's a little bit different, you can't have sort of one set of protocol applies to all and be really good at that protocol. It's very much, how are these people presenting themselves and have we got what we need to give them what they need, and then work it all out from there. And lots of specialists with different disciplines from a leadership perspective is also really challenging, because how a doctor would work, a traditional medicine doctor, and how a functional medicine doctor works, there's quite often conflict in beliefs, but we have to try and find the middle ground. So mediation is a big part, but yeah I'm enjoying.
I mean, with steep learning, there's a huge amount of development, but it's also very exhausting. So you're very brave, and it's really cool to hear about your journey. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Christian, how about you? Where did you start, and how does that connect to where you are now?
There's quite a range in my story as well. Susan, it's so exciting to hear your part and what you're going through because it resonates a lot. I would say I'd start with health. Like, why am I interested in health personally? And this was of a very young age. I had an older brother who has inspired me to take up triathlons. Individual endurance sports was something that I was always very, very keen on trying. And then I did quite professionally for a bit. Then I got drafted into the military in Germany when we still had a conscript army. And I served a total of almost 13 years as an officer in the German military. And then, of course, soldiers have certain health and like physical performance requirements. So health played a very important role in my position as an officer in terms of being a role model to my soldiers, but also to make sure that they're keeping themselves fit and to providing them with the right information and infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. Fast forward, I leave the military in 2017, and I had spent the last couple of years of my military career in communications in Berlin, attached to the Ministry of Defense in an editorial section as a reporter, as a project manager for communication, mostly digital, mostly video. So we're talking content. And very quickly, when I was becoming self-employed after leaving the military, I got contacted by publishing houses who were in health and spirituality and like, general self-help sort of literature. And I did that as a content strategist, self-employed for a while, mostly in digital products, content, video-driven products, during a phase where courses and webinars really blew up. And then, of course, we all experienced the pandemic when digitalization went overboard in every sort of industry and theater. And that's when I really kicked things off with my own startup together with a big publishing house in Germany, and we launched a series of digital products in the general health arena. And that's when I got to know my now business partner and co-founder in Stay Young Media, Nina Ruge. And I have to talk about Nina because without her, I wouldn't be here. Nina is a television presenter. She was on German television daily for more than 30 years. She's known by name and face by pretty much everybody over the age of 45 in Germany. So she's a prominent figure, and she has, since leaving television, roughly 10 years ago, has already written 10, no, 5 best-selling books
Mhm.
on the topic of healthy longevity, on health span optimization. And she's really a trailblazer for the topic, both for consumers as well as all of the connections she has to industry leaders and politicians, etc. So she's really a great influencer with a good track record of quality content in that. And we got to know each other when I was working at the same publishing house or working with the same publishing house on a project. And she said, well, I want to continue doing what I do, but I want to reach more people. So how about we create a digital platform? And that's what Stay Young Media has become. We've become a quote unquote platform that includes her personal brand, but a lot of media cooperations that we run in Germany and also in Switzerland. And we are really excited about the possibility of educating masses of people from various different backgrounds on the possibilities of how to lead a long and healthy life through technology and through the advances in personalized medicine. And that's how this whole story came about for me.
And two things that I happen to know because of our previous conversations that you skipped over is like one of the people that you worked with in publishing was Eckhart Tolle, which is really interesting if you follow like spirituality or self help. And I think I remember you saying that you also were involved in part of this journey with Nina is you've also done extensive podcasting on longevity as a topic, right? Like this is something that you've already done.
Yeah, we've produced more than 100 episodes, podcast in Switzerland and in Germany on the topic of healthy longevity. I should say, Nina interviews leaders in science and in business on the topic of the health and longevity science background, but also on the market development and products. And we even have launched, and this is like really service content. We don't make any money of that. It's just a project. We have launched a format on the podcast where we do fact checking on supplement companies. We invite them, but we also bring our sidekick experts, professors from universities, and then we ask some really hard questions on the efficacy of certain mixes, the science that is backing up the claims, of course, also the health claims, but most importantly, things like bioavailability and testing of these supplements. And this is really just service content to the people because that's the first touch point that people have. And it's a crucial one, is when they are presented with claims of, oh, if you take this, then you'll feel much better and your hair and everything else will benefit. And that's if that's the first touch point that they have a good experience, great. But if they feel like they're being taken advantage of, that's really bad for market and for the society. And then it really stands against our mission as Stay Young.
I mean, we need to dive into supplements a little bit later. Like everyone that I've spoken to in these podcasts so far have touched on that as a potential area of risk. And I think for the same reasons that you're mentioning. But I think, you know, we as humans are looking for that magic pill. And when we get the promise of the magic pill, we want to believe it, even though we probably know it's a marketing claim. But it's just like the desire to have that easy fix is still so strong in many of us because it would just be easy, right? Like this is the big promise around supplements and many of those solutions. Okay, so let's go back to the topic of longevity. So I'm curious because we're talking about two very different markets. We're talking about the UAE and the DACH region, so Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, focusing on Germany. Like where longevity is booming right now. Like you can't get away from it. It's like you can't hide under any rock. You're getting information about longevity coming in everywhere. Why has this mushroomed in your opinion? Like why has it gone from like I think it's an evolution from anti-aging to whatever this new term that people are coming out with on a daily basis, but why the explosion in longevity? Susan, can we start with your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting for me that I witnessed this sort of really beginning when I was operating within the fitness industry. And we understand that, you know, it's a bit of a buzzword. Everybody wanted to get on the gravy train. So as operators, we said, well, what can we put in these gyms and call it longevity so we can put that on our website and have it as an offering? So it tended to be sort of cold plunge and an infrared sauna, which, you know, having landed where I've landed and the amount of times we would prescribe for people not to go near a cold plunge because maybe they present early morning with very, very high cortisol rates, and we would do that from a simple blood test. So these things are, I wouldn't say that they're life-threatening, but simply it may not be good for you. It might be the best thing for you. It might be the thing that you do need, but I think it gives people a buzz. It's readily available. There are a lot more places, particularly in the UAE. Every time I'm going to a new strip mall or even an existing one, I'm seeing places that are now just promoting cryo chambers and infrared sauna. So I think there's a few things, media, and you get your big profiles like your Gary Brecker's, the Netflix show about the guy that takes it to crazy degrees. What's his name? Brian Johnson. And then couple that with availability of, I can get my blood test delivered to me and I could get some results. And you know what? AI tools will tell me how I would benchmark against norms within my region or even across the world. So it's kind of a bit of everything: awareness, availability, and then the ability to kind of put yourself into an AI tool. Goodness knows, I'm sure that's pretty dangerous, but just to give yourself some insights. So that's what I'm seeing here. It's on some of the street corners now.
Okay. Okay, so you're pointing this back to really like new available information, accessibility to testing, and the influencer factor, because that's definitely been a huge, yeah, you see it everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. How about you, Christian? What's driving the evolution of longevity in Germany?
For my personal opinion, I want to second what Susan said on the awareness part and the availability part, but go into a little bit more detail from my point of view. I think that it's hard to ignore the societal age structure that we see, especially in Germany. We have so many old people who are who have stopped and who will stop more and more so of contributing to the healthcare system as payers into the system and are benefiting from. That's a very German thing. Like we have very, very good healthcare in age. It's not, you can always talk about, fairness and equality, but it's generally we have a good system, a very social system, which means fewer and fewer people are paying into the system. So more and more people are realizing that the healthcare, while it's good as a setup, is not providing everything they want to keep their standard of living high. Which means there is more awareness on individual ailments, on individual situations where like, oh, there would be this treatment, but I can't even go and see my doctor or get an appointment with a specialist so he can have a look at it and prescribe it. And then, of course, there is also the question, well, would this be covered by my insurance? And we are historically, as Germans, are feel very codependent on our insurance system. We're like, oh, but so I'm already paying for this. If this is not covered, then either the immediate thought is like, well, then it can't be any good if it's not covered because they know better. Because we haven't been taught to think for ourselves in terms of our self-efficacy in personal health. And then secondarily, well, if it's not covered, then probably I don't need it, which means I don't want it. And we get that a lot. If we talk about DNA testing, if we talk about even things like hormone replacement therapy, the first question is like, well, I've heard really bad things about it. And then the immediate question is like, well, is it covered? They don't ask, what is the benefit of taking it? They ask, how much is it going to cost me? If anything at all, I don't want it. So very cost averse. So that is one thing that like we have this aging structure. The system starts failing us from our privileged perspective, and we're not really willing to pay for certain things. So when somebody comes around and gives us a very, very cheap option of like, oh, you just have to do this trick to become 110 years old, or you just have to move to a blue zone, or you just have to take this pill or drink my energy drink with creatine and taurine and whatever in it. And it's something that you buy anyways because you're consuming this sugary stuff,
Mm-hmm.
then that feels like an heaven sent. That's one side of awareness, and I think the second side of awareness is COVID. COVID has shown us mortality in a way and touched every one of us because the prospects were dire, and we saw people in our peer group dying and suffering. Of course, more so on the very old ones, but still, people of my age have suffered, and that reminds of your mortality. And your freedom was taken away. And I believe, and we see this in wellness, and I would love to hear Susan's take on this. We saw wellness, we saw anti-aging, and now we see longevity, like precision wellness. It all is moving towards eventually becoming personalized precision preventive medicine that is going to be offered everywhere I go as a consumer at various levels, depending on the legislative setup around me in the country or in the region that I'm living. If there's more regulation, I will only see it in doctors and practices and clinics. If there's less regulation, my taxi driver is going to ask me if I want an IV. That's
Imagine
my
that
take on the
you hop
awareness
in
part.
and you put on the oxygen mask, and you're just like, "Hey, I'm having a."
Exactly.
Bit of hydrogen
So
inhalation for your journey.
yeah,
Thank you.
one very interesting project. So we're cooperating with Charité, which is the seventh best clinic in the world, the second best in Europe, and they've just revealed a project that they've been working on for quite a while with BMW.
Mhm.
Continental is providing BMW with sensors that are measuring our biomarkers and looking at our at our eyes and our skin and stuff while we're driving. There's a lot of people spending a lot of time in the driver's seat, so there's a lot of time of doing early detection or just, collecting data on the health of this person. Going as far as judging their physical abilities by the gait while they're approaching the car and the way they're getting in and out of the seat. That's happening today. That's reality. That's not a pipe dream.
I like the
I mean,
I like the Germans' approach, which is we do cars really well, so we're going to use it for diagnostics.
Exactly. Exactly. We got you in the car. Now we're going to serve you more and more upsell on it.
I will buy an Audi for that reason.
BMW.
BMW.
oh, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
hold any stock, but this project is BMW and Charité, which they announced.
Well, I mean, this also makes sense to me. Obviously, the aging population is going to drive the need for longevity and health span, or whatever tag we're going to put on it. And I feel like, it's putting salt in the wound of that gap that healthcare hasn't solved for us in terms of preventative. Like, if I want to make sure I'm in the best possible health state, my doctor can't help me with that for the most part. They're not willing to. So I'm definitely on board with both perspectives. This is something driven by population. I really like your call out on COVID, Christian, because, like, knowing that you're going to die makes you more motivated to do something to live as much as you can for as long as you can. So that was a great and disruptive driver. That's the landscape. So what kind of longevity services are you seeing unique to your market? What kind of solutions are you seeing unique to your market that are gaining traction? Susan?
I just wanted to add on that insurance part, because the profile in the UAE around insurance-based claims is whenever you take anything that's diagnostic or preventative to the insurance companies here, it's a reject immediately, straight away. None of our business, that's not happening. But what we're seeing now are some of the larger groups saying, you know what, in certain tiers of insurance, we're going to give an allowance for diagnostic testing, and we're going to start giving an allowance for certain therapies, aside from physiotherapy and those sorts of traditional therapies. So we are working with insurance companies now on 150 markers that we would deem as essential for screening. And we've had so far 3 that have been approved by insurance companies, where we've had one of our medical doctors review one of the diagnostic profiles against a medical report and say, this is what we're seeing, this is what we would say is the best treatment plan. And we've managed to get the diagnostic test that was used for the analysis through on insurance. So we're thinking this could be something that we could really start to promote and push, because everybody with a residency card within the UAE has to have medical insurance by law, provided by themselves or by their employer. So it's a very natural, is this covered on my insurance? Is it on my insurance? And it's easy for the insurance companies just to say no. And so we get a lot of cash. But if we can turn the tables on that more diagnostic and more preventative approach, I think it would start the movement for insurance companies saying, well, hey, maybe we do these screenings as part of the onboarding process before we even approve a policy for you. I know ethically there's some challenges within that, but
yeah, I think, I mean, it definitely, I hope that insurance will move on this. I think, I'm afraid that they'll be quite slow. Like, I look at the packages that are available in the Netherlands right now, and it's just like what you have to pay to get additional services is a significant upcharge. And then knowing what I pay for some of the services that are not covered for insurance, it doesn't even make sense for me to get that upgraded package. There's no financial advantage. It cancels itself out. So I hope insurance moves faster, but I just don't think the system is designed for them to change yet. Any thoughts on that, Christian, before we moved to trends and services. I've lost audio.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
So I have a structured answer for you,
Okay, great.
because there's so many different areas of like where we see services and products. I think the first and foremost we touch on it is supplements.
Mm-hmm.
We saw, for example, and like this is not advertisement, like we saw Sand and Natural getting acquired for an 800 million valuation. Natural is like one of the foremost supplement providers. They're selling everywhere. They're prolific. They also brought on board a personal brand with a big podcast audience. So they're really pushing on like the supplement side, and they're doing everything to like make you really believe that they're in for the long run and that the quality is really good. So like that's their story. On the devices side, of course, we see global adoption of personal tracking devices. We, for example, are partnering with a company who does constant glucose monitoring, and we provided them with content. And this is something we're supporting, which is based on the Abbott sensors. Platforms, like digital platforms, very, very few and very little activity, which I think has mostly to do with Europe's privacy laws. Because it's very difficult with medical device software or medical data to be running a business, at least B2C on the B2C end. B2B, there is movement there. Then, of course, we have the clinics. We have years in Berlin. We have some clinics in Switzerland. Actually, Switzerland has a huge ecosystem of longevity clinics or preventative focus clinics. What's also very interesting, and I see that kind of as a counter movement, is like small practices and individual doctors
Mm-hmm.
from the longevity bubble offering a lot of what these bigger clinics are offering too, and sometimes at very competitive prices, with maybe even better individualized one-on-one consultations and coaching, so to speak. This is a really interesting element. We just touched upon insurers. German insurers are historically slow at adopting, but they're steadily working on their own integration of prevention with a credit system, with a kickback system, with content. We're talking with individual insurers here, but they're very, very careful, not wanting to scare either politicians and like, hey, what the hell are you doing with with the money of your insurance clients or the clients themselves? And then the last thing I want to touch on is diagnostics. We've all seen the home kits, but what we are personally pushing now is with Stay Young is the pharmacy as your first touch point. Because in Germany, we historically had these TV ads. After every prescription drugs, there was this claim or this call to action: for any questions or concerns, go to your doctor or ask your pharmacist. And that's where people have a lot of trust in the pharmacy in their hometown, in the block or around the block. And this is something that we want to push as a touch point for diagnostics, interventions, and for general health consultation, more so than going to a doctor who has literally 30 seconds to listen to you and write you up a prescription.
It's the biggest challenge with healthcare, I think, is the time crunch and the doctor load. What about GLP-1? Do you consider that in the longevity category? Why or why not?
Absolutely. Nina publicly is speaking very openly about taking GLP-1, and you look at her, you would think that's nuts. The lady is fit, beautiful, and thin, but she's
Mm-hmm.
taking them for potential longevity upside,
Mm-hmm.
which is in the literature and, of course, also in the conversations that we have, both on the podcast and behind closed doors. And she, in that regard, is a biohacker. She's hasn't had any negative effects. She's coping, of course, with a lot of the other lifestyle factors to make sure that she doesn't lose muscle mass, she doesn't lose too much weight, etc., etc. And so far, it's going really, really well. I'm personally not taking GLP-1 agonists, but it's as a topic, we are actively informing, and we don't, we're not, we don't have any prohibition of like talking about potential benefits because we're not our hands aren't bound like the producers. Like, for example, we had a panel discussion with the German CEO of Eli Lilly, and of course he's very happy for us to um, talk about our view on things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really interesting. I get, because of my feed and the recommendation matrix on Google, I get GLP-1 advertising almost every day.
All the
And
time.
there are people selling it for a lifestyle effect, as a lifestyle intervention, literally saying summer's around the corner, don't you want to fit into that bikini? You'll receive it, you will receive Monjaro in a discrete package without any labeling in 48 hours. That's how it's being sold and marketed.
Yep. Very interesting. Very interesting. I think it's a very hot topic. Susan, what about UAE? What services what is the selection of services look like in terms of trends?
On the GLP side of things, we are believers that it's a good product where it's required, as long as it's administered under the care of one of our medical professionals. And there's a whole series of tests and things we would do. And as an intervention for a period of time, I think it's great. And I think it makes the difference in so many people's lives, not just the weight loss, in terms of their confidence and their mental health. So great. I do see a lot of abuse here. It's readily available even without a prescription. So we are seeing, in terms of how people present, people can come to us for anything from, I just want to feel better, I want this, to, the other side where people have got cancer or they've been let down by the medical system. What we're seeing is a lot of people who've taken these weight loss drugs, not prescribed, not in the correct doses for extended periods of time. So we're seeing thyroid issues, lumps and bumps in their bodies that are unusual, and just no libido, no appetite, even sensory wise, no taste. So we're working through them. I think there's going to be a lot more data around the protocols post use of these drugs. And there's still a lot that we're working through. But in answer to the question, yes, we believe in it. Yes, we administer it where it's necessary, but it has to be closely monitored. And there's a start and an end point with it.
And you would or would not consider it a longevity service?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And then, like, what else? Like, of course, we've got the longevity tagged solutions that are offered by, the gyms, like the cold plunge and the infrared. But what would you consider, like, what are consumers going for in the UAE in terms of longevity services? What's hot?
So services, we're getting a lot of inbound inquiries about oxygen therapy, hyperbaric oxygen. These seem to be coming off a lot of Google searches. I know there are a lot of influencers who have got these chambers at home. So normally we can track it back to sort of one or two influencers. But I would say the other buzz right now, and something that we've had to very, very quickly put protocols in place for, is peptides. Lots and lots. And I'm not talking the powdered ones that you put in your protein shake, and the pharmaceutically prescribed injectable peptides. And for some reason in the UAE, there's a big circuit of MMA fighters, professional, non-professional, that this is the talk, this is the performance enhancer, this is, it's, I guess, under the guise of longevity, but recovery, performance, ability to build strength and endurance. I haven't seen any clinical trials or any evidence that would suggest right now that it's effective, but I start my trial in 3 weeks. So I've had my consultation. So for me, I don't try everything, but for this one, I'm interested in it for personal use, because I've, lucky me, I get to speak to the doctors and the functional health coaches all day, every day. So peptides is going to be my next journey. So I'm at a base level, so I have to record my life as it is right now. Then I will start the protocol, and we've got an R&D team here that will take my bloods on a regular basis. They'll do my VO2, they'll do my strength, and so it'll be a full program of what did this actually do for a person, and then we'll do that across 3 or 4 more people. So I would say peptides. I don't know about you, Christian, if that's landed in Germany, or maybe you're already a year or two ahead of us.
Certainly not ahead. It's the topic within the bubble. But if I recall correctly, and I would have to look this up. It's not widely available, which I think is also for regulatory reasons. Yeah, but it's definitely talk of the town at conferences, and you hear that people are on these protocols when they go and see doctors overseas and stuff. Yeah, but very much less so. I don't think that the clinics get a lot of people walking in with that specific interest. Definitely more so from my perspective on the oxygen type of treatments, interval hyperhypoxia training, hyperbaric oxygen chamber stuff. Red light is very popular because you see people with the masks and the big panels for thousands of euros. And what I find so interesting is that, and probably this is also a driver of the market for the future, is that for younger adults, so below the age of 50, it is a lot about recovery and performance because they're still working actively. They're working crazy hours. They handle this. They handle themselves and their families potentially in the multimedia world, and they themselves still want to feel like they're performing not just within the job, but also in their private lives. And that's where performance enhancing drugs, treatments, and recovery boosters. I mean, look at BlackRoll. How BlackRoll went from a company that made little foam rollers to now they have recovery boots and pillows, and like it's crazy. It's inspiring, but it's also a bit alarming because I personally think the pillow is not going to give you the better sleep. It's your overall protocol, like how you go about your day and your night routine and everything. Of course, having the right pillow, great. That's one little thing to check off, but the claims that sometimes go with these products are just wild.
I think that age profiling thing is really interesting because I was reading something the other day which sort of said if you're between the age of 40 and 50, it's called the sandwich filling phase of your life. So you're in the middle bit, and then below you, you've got children that you've got to manage their needs and wants and expectations. And then above that, you're probably looking after aging parents. So you're at that time in your life where you've got to perform below and above what's going on in your life. So your mental health needs to be on par, your physical health, everything has got to be optimal because you're caring for two different generations above and below you. So I thought that was a really interesting to call it the sandwich filling phase of life.
Generation. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, like, generally speaking, when I look around me, when I read reports, I don't ever see an example of someone just who has an abundance of time, who is able to manage their stress, who is not struggling with any lifestyle factors. So it makes sense to me that people are looking for solutions for these things. But I think, unfortunately, you've got this marketing team for a lot of big companies that understands this quick fix or take the pill mentality, which is like what you're explaining with BlackRoll. Like, the pillow is not going to solve all of my problems. I probably need to get off my device a few hours before going to bed and maybe go through some like just deep breathing cycles to calm my nervous system instead of hyperbaric oxygen. But we will always look for the sizzle, I think, as people. That's
On the topic of these like supplementary devices or purchases for health and happiness, I remember having the deepest sleeps of my life in Costa Rica at yoga retreats on a hardwood floor in the middle of the day or late at night after like a breathing or a meditation session or a long day of movement, being outside in the sun, happy with healthy people and healthy food. Of course, that's an ideal world that is, it's kind of like a hideaway from reality. But we will benefit from creating these pockets within the day
It's amazing
and not supplementing
how
for it.
many people presenting themselves with like fatigue and they don't quite.
this isn't about preaching or judging. It's just, I mean, it always goes back to the not so sexy basics that are actually quite free. So so that you have a foundation to actually build on. So if you had like 10 million to invest in a longevity company that would be in that category, not your own, Where would you put that money and why?
I'm not sure I want to give away that information.
No, come on.
I'm gonna give you my idea without giving the name of the company. Okay. But I would invest 10 million in a team
Hmm.
that is building a foundational information platform that solves three issues. One, the individual safe storage of my data, of all of the data, including the ingest and the visualization, of everything that I'm collecting with wearables and blood tests and everything. But I have full control, privacy by design. Secondarily, go through that data and give me personalized recommendations and then cross-reference them with the doctors or the people that I assign to be on my healthcare team. Whoever that is, whoever I trust. Can be my pharmacist, can be a professor from university. And that, of course, depends on my personal financial and insurance situation, but be able to share that with people that you trust and to get their recommendation. And I can also include information systems and AI if I want that to be, but it needs to be my decision who handles this information, where recommendations come from. And then thirdly, be able for that system to be able to intersect, to connect with all of the service providers and also state-run systems like digital client apps that I have for my pharmacy, et cetera, et cetera. And for me to be able to easily switch between those relationships, to turn on and off access to my data. Because health is built with trust. We trust our parents to want the best for us, so we
Hmm.
start brushing our teeth daily. We trust the pharmacist to give us the right recommendation. If one set prescription isn't available, he will tell us, well, this isn't exactly the same, but it's just as good. So I do that out of trust. I don't go fact checking. I don't get a second opinion from my pharmacist. I just trust him. So I believe that a system that starts with trust can handle all my data, but is possibly giving me all of the control that I want, that I can handle, and is legal within my country. That's something I would invest in because I think it would be a game changer for many of the other offerings that we're seeing and struggling. I've just been sitting in front row seat of seeing a company fold who has invested millions of euros into an amazing product that has been mismanaged and abused and will probably never see the day of light. And that is tragedy.
So sad. Yeah. No, I'm imagining as you're describing that situation is like, okay, I've got this, I don't know, resource service, and I'm doing like personal symptom tracking that I can then show to my pharmacist or doctor to help reinforce force or change their recommendation because they have even more information to go on to make better calls around my health. I think that sounds really phenomenal. And actually, the past two doctors that I've spoken to and asked this question about have given similar answers. This gap of being able to connect everything into one sandbox is mindset. Yeah, I can't think of a more perfect example to wrap the episode on because you're both actually providing answers that are addressing the systemic problems that have to be addressed to really drive progress. And it starts obviously with the medical system itself, and then the information that we're gathering and how we can use it and how we can hyper personalize it to actually make ourselves better. Thank you so much for your thoughts, insights, time, and wisdom. And I really enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise, thank you so much.